So we've got about 20 minutes now for questions for the panel, and I know we've discussed a pretty broad range of issues, so I hope you've noted down questions that you've had along the way. And we've got one to start off in Jennifer.
Thank you. Mine a question really for Helen, although Telstra might have a comment on it as well. Helen, considering the reports that enterprises are required to make to AOR, I'm interested whether certain things are included as mandatory items for response. And one is gender disaggregated data on casual staffing. The next is criteria for promotion. And the next is gender disaggregated statistics on promotions at each status level during the reporting period. My experience in anti-discrimination work is almost entirely on in universities, which is why I may be so steamed up about casual staffing. And we might hear whether Telstra also reports on these matters when it reports. Thank you.
That's a very good question, and thank you for it. The current reporting doesn't have that detail under the current legislation. We are engaged currently in a consultation process with all the key stakeholders, not managed by the agency, I might say, managed by the Office for Women, around the proposed new legislation and what the gender indicators might be against which organisations will have to report under the new legislation. A highly contentious issue, and I have to say there's another meeting of that group next week, and there is some hope, I think perhaps a very optimistic hope, that agreement will be reached on those indicators next week. I think the difficulty is that when we try to work out what are appropriate indicators to report against, you're trying to balance what are meaningful indicators and what is possible for business to report against at the moment, given HR systems, information systems and things alike. The other issue is, while the focus has been on outcome indicators, the position that the agency has taken in the consultation is that without some process indicators, the outcome indicators on their own are not much help to us in our role. I think we've just about won that battle. That was quite a battle. But in the early stages in the legislation, we will have to limit the number of indicators and the breakdown in data that we'll get until people can further develop their HR systems to be able to report this information. So the initial set of indicators under the legislation will be set, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I would see that being reviewed over time, and I would hope an increasing level of sophistication will be incorporated into those indicators as companies get used to getting systems in place that enable them to get the data and disaggregate the data in the fashion that you referred to.
Should I talk about Telstra? No? Yes? Okay. I'll just quickly say we've been on this journey to sophistication in terms of the data, if you like. So what we've learned is that counting women, for example, in an aggregate way is kind of interesting, but not terribly interesting because it doesn't tell you the whole story of the employee life cycle, the talent supply, what happens to people when they leave, if they leave, why they leave, all that sort of stuff. In the last 12 months, we've been looking more deeply at the data inside our organisation, and as I said before, we will be disclosing our measurable objectives around gender equality in our next annual report. So that may go some way to showing the depth to which we want to start publicly disclosing data to tell a real story, because these things are very important in terms of the outcomes that you get.
Thanks. I think this is a question for Matt, because I'm pretty sure Helen can't answer it and it's not really within her area. I'm interested in whether or not there is any prospect of equal employment opportunity type target work around all the other protected attributes in the federal area as part of the reforms, because it seems to me to be an astounding shortcoming of our current framework.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and it's something that's come up a few times in some discussions that I've had with various forums in the last couple of months. And the issue of setting targets, of having indicators, of having useful data and the government generating and disaggregating that data is something that we're looking at pretty closely as part of the National Action Plan, because it seems to be such a fundamental issue wherever we go. It's something the Human Rights Law Centre is looking at as well as part of the work they're doing to assist NGOs in responding in the National Action Plan process. So I'm hopeful that the challenge is trying to come up with what the first big tangible step forward is from a government perspective to make things start to work better. And I'm not quite sure yet what that is. I'd love to be able to say, let's just take the census about to happen and disaggregate all that data in a really useful way, please, and don't charge us for it. But perhaps there is something we can do there. Is it just too far away to look at the next census and start to put some real commitment around how data is collected as part of that? This is one area, of course. I also think there's a lot of scope for looking at the way the government does its projections into the generational type work and saying, well, in order to do that properly, you have to be able to have meaningful indicators and measure those along the way, and to collect the data that enables you to measure them. So, we're certainly having those discussions, and the more we can get, I guess, in feedback from NGOs about that, the better, really, at this point.
I guess the other part of the question is about having similar legislation to the EEO, that long acronym I can remember, across all of the protected attributes, or building that into any new legislation, because I think that's a really important proactive approach to change.
Yeah, certainly the extent to which I suppose it's covered already in things like the Australian Human Rights Commission Act, certain aspects of it, is obviously something that will be being looked at as part of the consolidation project. I can't really give you a very good answer to that because I'm not entirely sure the extent to which that is being looked at. But if I was in a Senate committee, I'd ask if I could take it on notice. But, which is the only good thing about being in a Senate committee. But Robin, is that okay if maybe we have a chat afterwards, and I'll and we'll get you a better answer to that? Yeah.
This question is directed at Matt. My name's Greg Oak, and I was really interested in that you were talking about consulting with community, and I'm really interested how governments go about consulting with marginalised communities and disenfranchised people, e.g. people with experiencing homelessness, people experiencing mental health issues, etc., etc. I guess one of the things you talked about was consulting with NGOs. From a consumer's point of view, that is a person that's trying to access these services. Often they're not consulted at all. I'm a great believer in what's known as consumer-only forums, where consumers can talk fearlessly without fear of retribution from people from NGOs. I just wondered how much money or how many times you had or given money to have any of these consumer forums where people from Indigenous communities or people experiencing homelessness are actually able to speak. And I guess my concern is there's 750,000 NGOs in Australia with budget in excess of ATO figures of $35 billion. You start doing the maths of that, I guess I'm concerned to make sure that the people that we're really talking about to ensure their human rights are protected and respected and fulfilled are really very often excluded from this process. They are very often excluded from things like today because of things like the cost of, and I love Human Rights Law Centre to death, and they're no doubt the outstanding human rights centre in Australia. And but I just wonder if you could answer those questions and tell me how you are really consulting with marginalised and disenfranchised communities.
Look, that's a very good and a very fair question, and also an extremely hard one to answer. I suppose that I wasn't in this job at the time, but I suppose the first significant step in consulting really broadly around human rights was the National Human Rights Consultation. That was a pretty big exercise, of course, a costly one and a time-consuming one as well. It's a very difficult thing to do.